I don't feel sorry for Dillian Whyte not getting a title shot, and I don't think that the WBC should be mandating him anytime soon. You're about to find out why. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Ramstar Says So. Okay, man, look. I'm going to keep it straight with all of you guys right now. Dillian Whyte does not deserve a title shot against any of the champions. Not Wilder, not Ruiz, not Applejuice if he keeps all three of those belts. Nothing. I'm going to get straight into this one. He is a jackass. He is a fool. He is the biggest dickhead a matchroom friggin' skivvy that I could ever sort of put words into place for. Let me break it down to you on this one. Dillian Whyte was mandated to fight Kubrat Pulev for the IBF mandatory position. This was last year. The IBF said to Dillian Whyte, you go and fight Kubrat Pulev. Matchroom lost the purse bid, and they said that the split would be 75-25 in Kubrat Pulev's favor because Pulev was the number one ranked fighter in the IBF. When the purses had come out, it came out that Pulev would earn a purse of about 1.2 million and Dillian Whyte would have earned a purse of about 360,000 British pounds. Dillian Whyte said, you know what, fuck that, I'm not taking this fight, and the IBF stripped him of all of their rankings and kicked him out because he refused to take the mandated fight spot. So that's one time he could have already been fighting for a world championship. You beat Kubrat Pulev, all of a sudden your Anthony Joshua's mandatory. Because you're already a matchroom fighter, it's in-house. Eddie Hearn gets this mandatory out the way nice and quickly. Secondly, he wants a shot at WBC title. Deontay Wilder's going back and forth with Anthony Joshua. Eddie Hearn's trying to throw Dillian Whyte into the fire to try and get Deontay Wilder away from Applejuice, because we all know if Wilder ever fights Applejuice, he's taking his head off. Do you know what Deontay Wilder says to him? Go and fight Luis Ortiz and I will give you a title shot next. Dillian Whyte said, no, you're not my promoter, you're not the WBC, you can't order this. So what happens? The WBC turns around and says to Dillian Whyte, if you fight, they mandate Luis Ortiz versus Dillian Whyte for the mandatory spot. They say to Dillian Whyte, if you can beat Luis Ortiz, you are the mandatory. He said to them, thank you, but no thanks. He turns down the Luis Ortiz fight for the mandatory position. So that's 2 times he's had the opportunity to fight for a mandatory position. And he's turned it down because he's a fucking idiot. Here comes number 3. Dillian Whyte was supposed to fight Dominic Breazeale for the mandatory and WBC interim title when it looked like Deontay Wilder was going to fight Tyson Fury in the rematch. The WBC said to Dillian Whyte and Breazeale, you two negotiate this fight and we will make the winner the interim and mandatory challenger to the winner of Wilder versus Fury. Dillian Whyte was fucking around with Breazeale the entire time, trying to claim A-side status and trying to claim higher splits on the fee, and the deal couldn't be done. This entire time Dillian Whyte was fucking about. What ended up happening was that Tyson Fury decided to be a little bitch boy and he ran away from the Deontay Wilder rematch. And because there wasn't a fight in place, the WBC decided to do what they had already done, and they had reinstated Dominic Breazeale back to mandatory status, and Deontay Wilder had to fight Dominic Breazeale, and Dillian Whyte was left in the lurch. So that's a 3rd time Dillian Whyte could have fought and could have been in position to fight for a mandatory slot, but him being the prick that he is the reason why he didn't fight. The only reason why I'm making this video is one of my boys who's been a fan of the show since I launched 4 or 5 months ago in January. Me and him, we've been sort of back and forth on the whole Dillian Whyte situation. Now he thinks that Dillian Whyte deserves a shot, and I'm telling him he doesn't. So I'm laying it down on camera, on microphone, on recording, so that he can go back and listen to this, because I think some people forget Dillian Whyte could have fought for a title. Let's go back to the easiest route to a title shot Dillian Whyte could have had, which he chose not to. He's negotiating with Anthony Joshua for April 13th. They're going back and forth. Dillian Whyte says that the offer that Anthony Joshua made was derisory, unacceptable. He claimed that he had been fighting and earning more money as a new pay-per-view star. Let's not forget, Dillian Whyte had fought back-to-back pay-per-views, one against Joseph Parker, one against Derek Chisora, so maybe his stock was up. They went back to the drawing board and Anthony Joshua made another offer to Dillian Whyte, which he turned down. Again, Dillian Whyte said that he didn't like the clauses that AJ was trying to put in for the rematch in case Dillian Whyte won. So he turned that fight down. And then AJ said to himself, you know what, fuck April 13th. He scrapped that date. He negotiated with Jarrell Big Baby Miller and decided to take himself to America because he couldn't negotiate the deal with Dillian Whyte. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just named out 4 times Dillian Whyte could have been fighting for a title, and he hasn't. So we're looking at the Kubrat Pulev situation. We're looking at the Anthony Joshua in-house situation. We're looking at the Luis Ortiz situation. And we're looking at the Dominic Breazeale situation. If you go on the WBC's website, the bylaws state that the being number 1 ranked in their rankings does not guarantee you a mandatory slot. If you actually read through the WBC the WBC bylaws, it actually states they can call a mandatory for anybody who is ranked 1st to 3rd. And while some people say that Breazeale shouldn't have been given a mandatory slot, they had to honor it because Dominic Breazeale was sitting down waiting for the Wilder fight. He had waited over a year for the Wilder fight, and that's why he slipped down to 4th. But because he had already been mandated, the WBC had to give it to him. The only reason why Dominic Breazeale dropped out of the top 3 in the WBC was out of pure inactivity because he had 1 knockover fight in the best part of a year to 18 months while waiting for the Wilder fight. Wilder fought Luis Ortiz, and he was supposed to fight Breazeale, but the Tyson Fury situation came and the WBC sanctioned the Fury fight, so Breazeale had to wait. They also sanctioned the rematch, so Breazeale had to wait longer, and that's why Breazeale and Whyte should have fought. Had Dillian Whyte had stepped up and fought Breazeale and maybe had just gone 50-50 or whatever it was, the fight would have been done, and he probably would have beaten Breazeale, and then he'd be mandatory. Right now, we've got Dillian Whyte trying to get this fight with Oscar Rivas for a mandatory position or an interim belt. I don't think it's likely to happen. We all know that Deontay Wilder is about to fight Luis Ortiz in the rematch. And after that, he's going to be looking at either fighting Tyson Fury again, or if Andy Ruiz comes through and beats Apple Juice for the second time for the undisputed Andy Ruiz versus Deontay Wilder. Dillian Whyte has gone and fucked himself. Yes, he might have grown his profile a little bit by fighting on pay-per-view in fights that really shouldn't have been pay-per-view. Derek Chisora 2, Joseph Parker, Oscar Rivas. And yes, he might have a few more quid in the bank, but he's not exactly bettered himself in terms of getting himself into position. What he should have done is taken the lower board money and went and fought Kubrat Pulev, but he didn't do that because all he cares about is money. He's had the opportunity to fight for titles. AJ gave him the opportunity. April 13th. Never forget that. As much as I dislike Apple Juice because I think that he's shook, Dillian Whyte could have been fighting AJ. He chose not to fight him. So what has Dillian Whyte done? Well, we've seen Dillian Whyte take a money fight against Parker. We've seen Dillian Whyte take a money fight against Chisora, and we're seeing Dillian Whyte take a 3rd money fight against Oscar Rivas. What do you want to be known for in the world of boxing? Being a guy who fought on pay-per-view and making money, or being a guy who won or at least challenged for world titles? Right now, Dominic Breazeale's legacy looks a lot better than Dillian Whyte's. Dominic Breazeale has fought for the heavyweight championship twice. The first time he came up short against AJ in losing in 8 rounds in 2017, and the arse whooping that he just got from Deontay Wilder a couple of weeks back. But at least he's challenged. Dillian Whyte is in his 30s, I believe, and he's nowhere closer to fighting for a world title. And the worst thing is, when the WBC finally mandate this fight and force Wilder to fight him, Wilder's going to whoop his ass and take him out in less than 4 rounds. Dillian Whyte is fucked about, so I hope he's made a lot of money, and I hope he's been getting a lion's share of the pay-per-view, because he's never going to be a world champion. The only way Dillian Whyte actually ever becomes a world champion is if those belts get split up again, similar to when Tyson Fury was stripped and vacated the rest of them. If they all go into obscurity, he might have an opportunity. But I couldn't see Dillian Whyte beating Andy Ruiz, and he doesn't have a hope in hell against Deontay Wilder. And if AJ gets back those belts, he ain't going to beat AJ. As I said, maybe if AJ gets his belts back and one of those governing bodies strip one of the titles off AJ, he might pick up a vacant belt if he's lucky. But apart from that, Dillian Whyte's not beating any champion because he's not good enough. So let's hope that he's stuffing his pockets. He's had multiple opportunities to fight for a world championship and he's turned them down every single time. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I don't feel sorry for this guy. He has chosen money over legacy every single time. And now he's come back to bite him on his ass. The guy fights for Matchroom and Eddie Hearn can't get him a title shot to save his life. Maybe it's time Dillian Whyte fucks off out of Matchroom and goes to PBC or Frank Warren or Bob Arum or De La Hoya, because him fighting with Matchroom, yeah, he might be earning a bit of money on these pay-per-views, but it's not really doing fuck all for his career. When you look back at his career, all you're going to see is he fought Derek Chisora twice. He fought Oscar Rivas, a guy that nobody really cared about. And he fought Joseph Parker coming off the back of a loss. Like, Dillian Whyte really needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror and think to himself, where the fuck am I going? Because right now, he's getting down the wrong path. Anyway, rant over. Leave a comment, hit like, hit subscribe, share this video. That's the end of the show because Remstar says so.